What if the things that make you truly awake are the very things you must learn to keep sacred? Not out of fear, but because silence is their guardian. We live in an age where everyone shouts their truth, where every revelation is posted, every pain displayed, every glimpse of awakening broadcast into noise. But the spirit does not awaken in the noise. It blossoms in quiet corners of the soul, and when you begin to see life as it is unmasked, infinite, eternal, you realize some truths lose their light when exposed too soon. This is not secrecy, it is reverence. It is understanding that some parts of your awakening were meant only for you. Because if the world cannot yet see with your eyes, your truth will sound like madness to them, and in defending it, you might lose the very peace it gave you. So, today, we will explore 6 sacred things that a spiritually awake soul must never reveal to anyone. Not because they are shameful, but because they are holy. And as we journey through them, let your mind be still. Let your heart listen. Because these are not lessons for the intellect, they are mirrors for the soul. If these words find you at the right time, then perhaps this message was meant for you. And before we begin, if this voice resonates with your inner search, take a moment to subscribe, to share this light with someone who walks a similar path, and to leave your reflection in the comments below. Not to agree or debate, but to honor your own experience in the silence of words. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. The depth of your awakening. There is a strange temptation that arises when you first awaken, a desire to tell the world, to share every insight, every revelation, as if illumination could be translated into language. But the more awake you become, the more you see that truth has no words. You cannot describe what has no edge. You cannot explain the taste of eternity to one who still lives for tomorrow. When you first touch the sacred stillness, when you see behind the veil of ordinary thought, you might feel an urgency to speak. But wisdom whispers, not yet. Because the depth of your awakening cannot be understood by those still asleep. And if you try to make them see before their time, they will not only reject your truth, they will make you doubt it.
Alan Watts once said,
"The desire to change the world is another subtle form of ego." In the same way, the desire to prove your awakening is a quiet return to the same illusion you transcended. When you truly awaken, you lose the need to announce it, because you realize there was never anyone else to convince. Have you ever noticed how the most enlightened beings rarely speak of enlightenment? They laugh, they observe, they live gently. Because truth needs no performance. It reveals itself in presence, not proclamation. Imagine a flower that blooms in the desert, alone under the endless sun. It does not cry out for witnesses. It simply is, and in its quiet being, the entire desert becomes more beautiful. So too, your awakening is a private blooming. The world does not need to see your petals to feel your fragrance. When you speak too early of your depth, you invite the shallowness of misunderstanding, and every opinion, every doubt, every label will begin to cloud the clarity you've earned. Your awakening is a seed, and seeds grow in the dark. Expose them to the light too soon, and they wither before they root. Silence, then, becomes your protection. It is not the silence of suppression, it is the silence of sacred growth. The silence that allows your insight to move from thought to being. So guard your awakening like a flame in the wind. Let it burn unseen. Let it light only the corners of your own heart. Because the day will come when you no longer need to speak of light, you will have become it. And when that happens, the world will see without you saying a word. That is the paradox of true spirituality. The moment you stop trying to prove it, it begins to radiate effortlessly through you. Your peace will be your testimony. Your stillness will be your sermon. And your silence will speak louder than every explanation you once struggled to give. Because the awakened do not announce themselves. They dissolve quietly into the mystery of what they have seen. Chapter 2. The wounds that shaped you. There are certain stories within you that were never meant for the public ear. Not because they are shameful, but because they are sacred lessons. scars written in the language of the soul. We live in a world obsessed with confession. Everyone wants to tell their pain, to make it known, to make it visible, as if healing depends on how many people have seen the wound. But healing, my friend, does not happen through display. It happens in quiet integration, when you finally sit with your pain. Not to dramatize it, but to understand it. The moment you share your deepest wounds too early, you hand them to those who have not yet learned how to hold such tenderness, and they will touch them with unclean hands, with judgment, with pity, with fear, and your sacred suffering will be turned into gossip, into misunderstanding, into noise. True healing is fragile in its early form. It needs silence, like the moon needs night. It needs the privacy of your own breath. Have you ever noticed how even nature hides its transformations? The seed splits underground, unseen. The butterfly is born in darkness, unseen. Even the stars take millions of years before their light reaches us. Nothing sacred ever rushes to be witnessed. Alan Watts once said, "You are under no obligation to be the person you were a moment ago. But to become new, you must first honor the brokenness that made you old. And that process, that tender rebirth, is not for others to observe. When you expose your wounds before they've healed, you invite the world to interpret your pain instead of allowing your soul to translate it. There is a quiet dignity in keeping your struggles unspoken until they mature into wisdom. Because one day, what now feels like a wound will become your teacher. And from that teacher, you will speak with authenticity, not fragility. Think of a mountain scarred by time and wind. Every mark, every crack, tells the story of endurance. But the mountain does not narrate its erosion. It stands, and in its silence, we see beauty, strength, and stillness. Your soul, too, is becoming a mountain. Each wound has carved you into depth. Each sorrow has given you shape. And when the time is right, when pain has become understanding, you will soar, not as a cry for help, but as a gift of truth. Because when your suffering has ripened into wisdom, your story will no longer seek sympathy. It will offer freedom. Never reveal your wounds to be comforted. Reveal them only when they have become light for someone lost in the same darkness you once knew. That is sacred sharing. Not the performance of pain, but the transmission of healing. So keep your wounds close until they've taught you everything they came to teach. Let them whisper. Let them arch it. Let them become the soil of your compassion. For what once hurt you will become the reason you can love so deeply. And in the quiet grace of your own transformation, you will realize you were never broken. You were simply being refined. That is why you must not reveal your wounds too soon, because they are not signs of weakness, but blueprints of your becoming. When you honor your pain in silence, you become your own healer, and the world begins to feel your wholeness without ever knowing your history. Chapter 3. The vision that guides you. There comes a time in every awakened soul when you begin to see glimpses of what could be visions not of the eyes, but of the inner knowing. You may see possibilities for your life, clearer than ever before. You may feel the whisper of a destiny, a calling that only you can hear. And the mind rushes to share it, to tell the world, to seek validation, to feel seen in your vision. But there are some dreams that die the moment you speak them. The earliest light of a vision is delicate, like the first breath of dawn, or the first spark in a dark room. It needs to be held, not shown, nurtured, not explained. Because when you tell the wrong ears, they will measure your dream with the ruler of their own limitations, and in their doubt, you will begin to doubt yourself. Alan Watts once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself. When you glimpse that truth, you realize your vision isn't yours at all. It's life, unfolding through you. And if you let others interfere too soon, their fear becomes the fog that hides your inner landscape. The most dangerous thing you can do with a sacred vision is to make it public before it's rooted. Because in those early moments, you are still discovering what it means, still learning how to hold it without breaking it. Your vision is like a newborn soul. It must first learn to breathe in your silence before it can walk in the world. Have you ever noticed how the most profound artists, mystics, inventors disappear before they return with creation? They vanish. Not out of isolation, but incubation. The universe hides its miracles until they're ready to be seen. When you speak too soon, you give away the energy that should be building your path. Every word disperses the power that silence was gathering for you. So learn the sacred art of withholding, not from secrecy, but from strength. Let your vision grow wild and unspoken until it becomes undeniable. It's not about hiding from the world. It's about becoming the vision itself, because when you embody your purpose, you no longer need to explain it. The tree doesn't announce its growth. It simply reaches for the light. The river doesn't justify its direction. It simply flows toward the sea. In the same way, your vision must become your movement, wordless, natural, inevitable. The more you protect it, the more it grows within you. And one day, when it's ready to breathe on its own, you'll find the right people waiting. Not to question, but to recognize that there is a hidden law in the universe. What is truly meant for you will always find its way into form, without force, without explanation. So guard your vision like fire in the rain. Feed it quietly with belief, with patience, with solitude, and when it finally shines, you will not need to reveal it, it will reveal you. That is the beauty of divine timing. The world will see your vision the moment you become one with it. Chapter 4. The silence you have found there is a silence within you that the world will never understand. A stillness so deep, it feels like standing in the heart of eternity itself. It comes not from running away from life, but from finally ceasing to resist it. And when that silence finds you, you no longer wish to speak because every word seems smaller than the truth you feel. It's a peace beyond reason, a quiet beneath the chaos, and it is fragile, like morning dew. If you try to show it, to describe it, to prove it, it begins to fade. The mind wants to name it, to say, I am peaceful now, to make it an identity. But the moment you name it, it becomes something else. It becomes ego's trophy, not spirit's truth. Alan Watts once said, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. So, do. The silence of awakening is preserved not by speaking of it, but by living through it. Have you noticed how quickly peace leaves when you try to explain it to others? How the very act of describing serenity invites the noise of the mind back in? That's because silence is not a thing you possess. It is a space you become. And when you reveal it too early, the world mistakes it for apathy. They may call you detached, distant, or strange, but they do not know that you are simply listening to the hum of eternity. Peace is the highest rebellion in a world addicted to noise. When you rest in silence, you expose the illusion of control. You stop playing the game of urgency. You stop chasing the next identity to wear. And this unsettles those still asleep. They see your calm and feel threatened, because your presence mirrors their own restlessness. That is why the wise do not parade their serenity. They walk quietly through storms as if the rain itself were a blessing. They speak softly, not to impress, but because they have nothing left to prove. Your silence is not emptiness. It is full of knowing. It is the ocean beneath the waves of thought. And to share it too freely is to invite ripples where stillness should remain. Think of the moon reflecting on water. If you stir the surface, the reflection disappears. Not because the moon is gone, but because the water forgot how to be still. So too, your inner silence vanishes when you let others disturb its surface. Protect Italiano, honor Italiano. Let it remain unseen. Because true peace is not for admiration. It is for living. It is for becoming. When you no longer need to defend your stillness, you will have discovered its true depth, and those who are meant to understand will feel it without words. They will sense it in your eyes, in your pauses, in your unhurried presence. Alan Watts often reminded us that life is not a problem to be solved, but a song to be heard. Only silence can hear the music. So do not reveal the silence you have found. Let it echo through your actions instead. Let it shape your kindness, your patience, your effortless being. For the most powerful truths do not need to be declared. They are lived quietly in the space between your words. And that is where the divine hides not in speech, but in stillness. Chapter 5. The kindness that needs no witness, the more awake you become, the less you need to be seen, because you begin to understand. The purest acts of goodness are those done without an audience. The modern mind craves recognition. It turns even kindness into currency. We help to be praised. We give to be remembered. We love to be validated. But the awakened heart learns to give without echo. It plants seeds in the dark, knowing that light will find them in time. Alan Watts once said, "The ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. When you help for the sake of being seen, you are not serving life. You are serving the self. And yet, when you give quietly, without claiming the act, something miraculous happens. Your kindness begins to dissolve the ego itself, because the ego cannot survive in anonymity. It feeds on credit, applause, and ownership. So when you act from love without expectation, you starve it gently until all that remains is compassion without name. Have you ever watched a tree bear fruit? It doesn't demand applause for its offering. It simply hibis, season after season, without announcement, without pride. And yet its shade feeds the weary. Its fruit nourishes the traveler. Its beauty blesses even those who never stop to notice it. That is what true kindness feels like. Quiet, effortless, eternal. The world has taught us to publicize our virtue. We call it transparency, but often it is hunger. A hunger to be admired for being good. But goodness that needs proof is not goodness. It is performance. Your soul does not grow through public service. It grows through invisible grace. When you forgive silently, when you help without mention, when you choose compassion over revenge and never tell the story, that is the moment you touch the divine. Because real service is not about the other person. It is about dissolving the self. It is about learning that giving and receiving are not two separate things, but one flowing act of love. Alan Watts said, "To go out of your mind at least once a day is tremendously important." And perhaps this is what he meant. To forget yourself long, enough to remember your unity with everything else. When you give without witness, the act becomes eternal. Because it was never for this world's eyes. It was a dialogue between you and the infinite. Let your kindness remain hidden. Let your service be a whisper between your soul and God. Because the moment you make it visible, the magic begins to fade. A saint who needs to be seen is no longer a saint, just another actor in the play of pride. But one who serves unseen becomes a living prayer. The sea does not count the waves it sends. The sun does not record how many hearts it warms. They simply hibi, because giving is their nature. And so must you. Do not reveal your kindness for recognition. Let it live in silence. Let it die unknown to the world, but known deeply to the universe. For every hidden act of love ripples through existence, shaping destinies you may never witness. It is the quiet ones who change the course of the world without needing to be remembered. You are not born to impress. You are born to express, to allow love to move through you, without ownership, without reward. And that is the highest form of awakening, to act from love and disappear. Chapter 6. The mystical experiences that cannot be spoken. There are moments on the spiritual path that language cannot touch. Moments where time disappears, where the you Thor, where dissolves into something vast and wordless. You might see the world breathe with you. You might feel the boundaries between self and universe melt into one seamless awareness. You may realize there is no I, only the infinite playing at being you. And the first instinct, the human instinct, is to tell someone, to share the miracle, to describe the indescribable. But the awakened soon discover that revelation dies in translation. Because the moment you speak of the sacred, you drag the eternal into the temporary. You reduce infinity into sentences, and the listener will only hear what their mind can hold. Alan Watts once said, "Those who try to explain mysticism are like people who try to bite their own teeth. You cannot grasp what has no edge. You cannot describe what has no opposite." The divine was never meant to be understood, only experienced. When you begin to share your mystical encounters, your visions, your insights, your moments of cosmic oneness, you invite misunderstanding, and misunderstanding invites ego. Suddenly, the mind whispers, "I have seen what others haven't. I am special," and just like that, you are asleep again. The highest experiences of consciousness are meant to humble you, not elevate you. They are reminders of how small the self truly is, and how infinite the life moving through you has always been. To reveal these moments, too, freely is to risk turning the sacred into spectacle. The ego loves to claim enlightenment as an achievement, but awakening is not something you earn. It is something you remember. When you touch the infinite, you realize it was always there waiting behind the noise, behind the names, behind the seeker who was seeking. So, protect these moments. Let them dissolve quietly into your being. Do not tell the world what you saw. Become what you saw. Because when you return from the mountain of silence, your very presence will speak louder than any story. The awakened do not say, "I have seen God." They simply see God in everything. The mystic does not declare enlightenment. He washes the dishes, tends the garden, walks through life, as if every moment were a prayer. That is what it means to live in truth, not to convince others of the divine, but to carry its stillness wherever you go. So if you have glimpsed eternity, let it remain your secret. If you have touched the infinite, let it be your private song. For the sacred is not meant for conversation. It is meant for transformation. You are no longer the one who speaks of light. You are the light that listens. And that light does not boast. It does not argue. It simply shines quietly on everyone and everything, without choosing, without claiming, without fear. That is the final lesson of awakening. What is truly divine cannot be shared through words. It must be lived through presence. So now you know. There are truths too sacred to explain, depths too vast to measure, and awakenings too silent to announce. The truly awakened soul walks through life not as a preacher, but as a mirror, reflecting peace without trying to teach it. You see, the greatest wisdom isn't in revealing what you know, but in living so deeply that your presence itself becomes a lesson. Alan Watts often reminded us, to become what you truly are, you must let go of the need to prove it. You don't have to defend your soul. You don't have to share every secret. You only have to be Dot. And in that being you will move through this world, like still water reflecting the stars. Calm/quiet, infinite. Before you go, take a breath. If something in these words touched you, if they reminded you of what you already know within, then let this be more than just another video. Share your reflection in the comments below. What part of this message spoke to you the most? Your voice might help someone who is listening in silence tonight. And if you wish to walk deeper into these ideas, into the mysteries of consciousness, ego, and awakening, then subscribe, not for me, but for the voice in you that longs to remember who it truly is. Let's keep discovering together, one realization at a time. Now, I leave you with a question, a seed for the next journey. What if the reason you can't find peace is because you keep searching for it outside yourself? Think about it. Until next time, stay awake, stay humble, and stay free.